Welcome to the Aging Boomers. I'm your host, Frank Sampson. On this show, we discuss so many of the issues facing boomers, their parents, and an aging population today. And just so much going on in our industry and with the growth of an aging population. And so I'm very excited about today's guest, but before I introduce her, I want to let everybody know that today's show is sponsored by Senior Care Authority, a professional senior placement and elder care management organization that has a national network of advisors to help in determining the right path for seniors in receiving proper care and even supervision. So whether it's in-home care, assisted living, residential, or memory care, get the necessary advice from a senior care advisor right in your area by calling Senior Care Authority at 888-809-1231, or you can go to www.seniorcareauthority.com. And I want to, again, thank everybody for tuning in, not only on today's show, but so many of the shows in the past. For those of you who aren't as familiar with it, maybe you were sent a link or something of the show, you could get up to date on each show that we do every Monday and Friday just by going to either agingboomers.com, but you can subscribe by going to iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spreaker.com. Not as well known, but you can go on there and just subscribe, and you'd be updated on each and every show. So again, thank you all for tuning in, and thanks for all your input. And so I'd like to introduce today's guest. Her name is Dinah Bailes. Dinah began working in the assisted living industry, should I say this, Dinah? 1985. And
I was very young.
And received national recognition in 2008 for forming the Assisted Living Federation of America in Tennessee and successfully advocating for resident-centered regulations. Her experience is kind of too long of a list for this show, but does consist of serving as Chief Operating Officer at Age Song Elder Communities, a groundbreaking company operating and developing elder care communities in the San Francisco Bay Area. Certainly communities I'm very familiar with, a wonderful community. She also was singled out as Executive Director of the Year with the California Assisted Living Association in 2011. She then came to Columbia, South Carolina as Executive Director of the Crossings at Columbia in 2013, joining her husband, who teaches and studies at the University of South Carolina. So, Dinah, thanks so much for joining us on the Aging Boomers.
Thank you for having me, Frank.
Yeah, we're thrilled to have you on. Certainly many years of experience, which that's actually what I'm going to start out with. In my first question to you, I mean, you've been involved in some form of senior housing, it seems, over the past 30 years. So give us some input. How have things changed? I mean, if you could kind of capsulize it, how have things changed in assisted living and senior housing?
Wow, this has really been a blossoming industry, a blossoming career for people who want to work with elders. In the last 30 years, it's been very exciting. When I first started in California there, Frank, assisted living was called residential care for the elderly, and actually it's still called that.
Still called that, yeah.
The state, And so it started mainly in people's homes, and I was fortunate to be in the Southern California area, and they had larger communities that were rooms primarily. And people didn't really have a choice. They had rooms, and then they had their meals in the main dining room, and kind of a copy of a medical model out of skilled nursing, and that was how assisted living looked back 30 years ago. And over that time, I think that people realized number one, that the demographics were going to demand that there be other supportive options for elders as they age, and we began to get very creative in those ideas. A lot of people probably, and Frank, you're probably familiar with the continuing care retirement communities. They call them
sure,
CCRCs.
CCRCs, right.
Yeah, and those were around back then as well, where people paid an upfront fee, and then they had some type of lifetime agreement for additional care and services through that community. Things changed, though, where people didn't want to put that large upfront fee, sometimes anywhere between $50,000 to $500,000, and they decided no, they'd rather keep that money and invest it and have it working for them.
Right.
And so came along the month-to-month rental style assisted living communities. Mm-hmm. And those they vary. You still can rent places that are rooms, but you also now have communities that are full apartments. And also, I think one of the new things, Frank, is really great is I see these unbundled development retirement communities that have assisted living, independent living, memory care, and even skilled nursing, but they may be on a 100-acre campus mixed in with houses and duplexes and cottages, and you don't have to pay the upfront fee
right.
To be part of that. And that, I think, is a really great idea.
Yeah, I think that when people bring up CCRCs, really that model, not the financial model, but the living model is already there.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
it's
right.
already there
exactly.
without having to pay the upfront fee. But so that's interesting that it really started in the home, in homes, and the being in the industry. So I really enjoy talking to you about this. I see mainly in the western states, a little bit in the Midwest, down in Florida. I mean, there's what you're talking about. There is a mix. There's a mix of larger communities. There's a mix of, in California, as you know, they have a lousy name for it here in California called board and care. But, these are, literally residences. These are houses. Many of them are, they do a pretty good job, many of them, and certainly can meet the demands of someone who maybe needs a higher level of care because the caregiver to resident ratio is pretty good. So, but then, you're not going to have as many activities and all of that. But I see that these types of homes that you mentioned started out initially in the industry, mainly, as I say, in the West Coast. I don't see it much in the East. I don't see it as much in some of the southern states. Why do you think that is?
You mean the smaller homes?
Yeah, the smaller homes.
Mm-hmm. Well, because I have been able to travel across the country in about 18 states mm-hmm. doing senior care and senior housing, I've been able to have a good view of what's happening in our country. Mm-hmm. And I do think that California has a very large number of the smaller board and cares. And just like you, Frank, I have seen them provide wonderful, loving, attentive care for residents. And for someone who's looking more for a home-style environment, that is very good. I also see them here in the Southeast, and I'm here in Columbia, South Carolina, and there are some of these communities, but they don't have the same status as they do in California. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's because there aren't as many of them.
Right.
And maybe because they have not really organized themselves to have a voice out there to represent what they do. Mm-hmm. Frank, a lot of times what happens is people that have mental health issues often come into what they call group homes. And these group homes are kind of a combination elder, mental health in the Southeast. That's what I'm seeing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an interesting combination of care.
I mean, knowing that the model works pretty well in California, wouldn't you think that, East Coast and some other areas would implement these types of things, especially with the demand increasing every single day?
Well, Frank, one of the wonderful things about California is it is a destination for many people coming from other countries, immigrant folks. Mm-hmm. And a wonderful way for someone to have a business and get started, especially if they have had a background in nursing or some type of care or even education, but they can't get the credentials here in the U.S., they can start a small board and care community in a home. And it's not a big upfront cost. So I think we've had in California a lot of folks who have are first-generation immigrants from other countries who were willing to try this, and really it took off. I have worked with groups from the Philippines, groups from Romania, groups from the Ukraine, and different areas as they develop their small board and care communities.
Yeah, interesting. So,
and I don't see that in the Southeast.
Right.
We just don't have that group that is willing to come in and fit that niche. There isn't someone interested in working that niche.
So you think that's the case in other states as well? Why maybe that model hasn't grown yet? I
do think so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So how do you think we're going to be able to meet the demand that's occurring over the next 20 years? Do you think the assisted living industry is ready to do that, or is that a concern of yours?
Well, being part of the Assisted Living Federation of America and a variety of other groups, this is a topic that they talk about a lot, is how are we going to meet the demand and where is that demand going to be? And surprisingly, the Southeast is a growing area of development for senior housing. South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, that kind of Middle Eastern seaboard and Southern seaboard there is real popular for people to come to for retirement, and then as they age, they may look for assisted living. And I don't think we have enough at all for the next 20 years because, as you know, too, that the demand for Alzheimer's and memory care is going to grow, and we do not have the number of beds, nor do we have the ability to really properly care for those folks.
Yeah, so that's, but I'm seeing, at least out here, and I see it in other areas as well, that you're always hearing about a new development, a new assisted living or memory care development being built now that the economy is getting back on its feet. So are you seeing that as well? And how are these organizations getting their funding to build?
Well, that's why things are behind right now, Frank, is had they been able to keep the development going for senior housing projects through the financial crisis in 2008, then we would have been ahead. But a lot of development stopped at that time. And so now that things have improved, you can see that banks, lenders, and developers are back in again and building pretty fast. The thing is, they do a market study, and this is done, at the level of someone going out and doing a market study and finding out about the demographics and the need of the area. And based on that, they determine whether it's a good market to get into. Mm-hmm. But I think I've talked with you, Frank, about the idea of the way we fund and develop and build our communities is based on a real estate model. And I've had people come to me, consumers, particularly there in the Bay Area, and say, We do not want to have my mom or my dad living in a community that's based on real estate profit and facing a sellout, a takeover, and disrupting the care and the philosophy of the care in a community. And until we look at how we fund these senior housing developments, I don't think that's going to change. It's still a real estate investment.
Yeah, and one of the biggest challenges we face in our organization is having, needing to assist those who maybe don't have the money themselves, the funds themselves to stay in a quality location. And, it's difficult to ever turn your back on somebody. You want to help them. And a lot of the places that are being built are, they're getting pretty pricey. So, that's another challenge I think we're facing. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. Actually, that's why Dr. Nader Shabahangi, the CEO of AgeSong, and I took over and opened a community on Fruitvale Avenue in Oakland, California.
I've been there.
And that was a wonderful experience.
Yeah. Why? But so was that designed to be more affordable for people? Is that?
Yes. AgeSong, of course, is a cutting edge community, and they built communities in Emeryville and Oakland and San Francisco, and they're known for their high quality of care. So the question was, and to the board and to Dr. Shabahangi, is, can we do this quality of care at an affordable price for people that may be on fixed incomes or really on limited incomes? And can we partner with some public institutions such as PACE programs, the Centers for Elders Independence, programs like that? Can we partner with them to have an assisted living community that is affordable but still has high quality of care?
Yeah, well, that's great. So what are some of the other trends you're seeing, as it relates to that, or just, what's going to be the look and feel of the assisted living communities in the future?
Well, if I was looking at it right now, I have one fear, is that we would be in a two-tiered assisted living system. One for those that have the money, that can do it, and then a completely different model that we probably wouldn't want to be in for those of us who don't have that level of money. And it's a two-tiered system, and as we age, you hate to think that that's what's going to happen, is you're going to end up into some two-tiered class system, and you're in a second-class, second-rate situation. But I do hear hopeful things, particularly from people that are part of the baby boomers. They are voicing what they want. They are telling the market, and they're talking to financial institutions, and they're trying to get it out there in the public, like your show here, and in magazines and other ways of getting this picture out there. They're talking about more community-based assisted living ideas, such as the virtual assisted living, and also small and cluster assisted living, where you may have a cluster of houses that are built together. And, of course, Dr. Bill Thomas spoke about greenhouses, which are the smaller, environmentally friendly, but also more local family, community building type of communities. So I think there's a lot of people talking about this, and we need to talk about it, because you don't want a banker or some real estate developer deciding what you have to have. You want to be telling them what you want.
It's interesting when, and I'm not sure if it's this way throughout the country, but I know here in California, and you probably saw that when you were here, when a new development goes up now, housing development, just regular housing development, there's must be a section, whether it's a certain number of homes or an area that are, I don't want to say low income, but lower income. And in other words, trying to target some of the employees, whether it's teachers or people in the community that maybe can't afford some of the higher costs of housing, especially here in California. And it seems to make sense. And I'm just wondering, that seems like it could be a great thing to happen, that anytime somebody opens up a community, an assisted living community, they must have a certain percentage of rooms that are for those who have little money. Do you see that at all?
Frank, that's a great idea, and I did see that in the city of Albany there in the Bay Area. We were working with them when they were developing the new community that's just opening there in Albany, and the city planners, the city fathers and mothers of the area said, we would like to have a certain amount for people actually live in Albany at a rate that they can afford. So I think cities and counties have more power than they realize. But what happens is a lot of times these developments go through the planning process in cities and counties throughout the country, and no one has a clue that it's going on. And so all the approvals are done prior to the time where you could have that input. So you have to really get with your city planners and your county planners to talk about those things and maybe pass ordinances that would require it. I think it's a great idea, Frank.
Yeah. So Dinah, you've been in the industry for a while. So I haven't been in the industry near as long as you have. I love this business. I love getting up every day and working with people. What inspires you to keep going in this line of work for as many years as you've been in it?
That's a good question, Frank. The truth is, the people that I meet that need the care, the families, the residents, every day, meeting them, talking to them, and learning their stories, that is what motivates me. And I have never been bored. I've been doing it for 30 years, but never felt monotonous or bored in any way, because every person is different. The people providing that care is how to meet their needs personally. It's holes and square pegs. It's not that. It's a very individualized process, and because of that, I am still invigorated every day by the people I talk to.
Well, that's great. That's wonderful to hear. I know I mentioned to you that my business, we're helping others start up their own businesses in this industry. So we love bringing some new blood and enthusiastic people in the industry. So it's so needed. So tell us a little bit about the projects you're working on now.
Well, currently working on a new community. It's an 88 apartment community in Columbia, South Carolina. Columbia, of course, is the capital of South Carolina, and we are located about an hour and a half from the beach and an hour and a half from the mountains, and so it's a great area. And our community is an assisted living community, but it's apartment style, so people can have one-bedroom, two-bedroom apartments and still have care and services because the entire building is licensed. And we also have something called Harmony Square, which is our memory care area. We have 24 apartments for that. And we're managed by a wonderful group called Harmony Senior Services out of Roanoke, Virginia. Mm-hmm. And Harmony has properties in Virginia, but they also are building things throughout the eastern seaboard area. And they have some great unique properties, even some beautiful historical properties, such as the Chamberlain Hotel in Chesapeake, Virginia, and it's a over 100 years old, and it's a very historic hotel that sits on the Chesapeake Bay, and they have created a senior retirement community there at that gorgeous hotel.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think it's important for our listeners to know as in assisted living, I always like to ask people that I talk to, kind of give me your impression of what assisted living is, and everybody has kind of a different view of it, but I think what most people don't realize is the amount of choices that are out there. It's all different sizes, shapes, and like we talked, there's literally houses that are licensed by the state in many states, and then you've got the very large places, and then some of the smaller, more bed breakfast type places in a sense. So not that they just do bed and breakfast, but in
boutique.
comparing,
We call that boutique assisted living.
Right, boutique assisted. So there's a lot of different types. So I think it's important for people, to realize that when if and when that day comes for them. So
people are coming more educated to the communities. They've done a lot of research online and you're really able to find out a lot of good information online and be an informed consumer and make choices. It's good to think about it ahead of time. I'm sure you encourage families to talk about this ahead of time, because when you get in a situation that's kind of a crisis, you are apt to make a quick decision, and then you may not be happy with the decision.
Right.
So that's good, Frank.
So any words of wisdom you have for our listeners who might be confronted with taking care of a loved one, like a parent? I mean, we've got really about 30 seconds left, unfortunately. I could talk to you all day, but give us...
Well, I just want to thank you, number one, Frank, for having me on, and it's such an important issue to my heart and my life. I think that being an advocate for yourself ahead of time, telling people what you're interested in, and doing as much research as possible is important. Connecting with professionals like you, case managers, geriatric caseworkers, even the new advocates they have in hospitals are very helpful to families, and reach out and find that information.
Good suggestion. And if people wanted to get a hold of you, Dinah, how would they go about doing that?
Well, I am in the process of redoing my website, but you can reach me via email at dbailes, and Frank will have that spelled for you, Bailes, D as in Dinah, at Comcast.net, or you can reach me on Facebook at Dinah Means Bailes on Facebook.
Perfect. So that's D Bailes, D as in Dinah, B as in boy, Ailes at Comcast.net. Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Dinah. We'll have to have you back. Just lots going on in the industry. So I so much. This is near and dear to my heart. So I enjoyed talking to you very much. Thanks for taking the time.
Okay. Have a great day, Frank. Bye.
Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. And please just let your friends, family know about this show. That's our whole objective here, is to really educate people on so many of the things facing all of us in this aging population. So thanks for joining us on The Aging Boomers. Be safe out there, and we'll talk to you all soon.